Welcome to Still Growing in Grace, a program dedicated to inspiring joy, giving hope, and delighting in grace. I'm Mike Zenker, and I'll be sharing with you a message of hope that will expand your understanding of God's love and amazing grace. God already deeply loves you, totally accepts you, and really, really likes you. Growing in Grace Ministries Canada and Hope Fellowship, your community church, invite you to enjoy today's program as we dig deeper into what it means to be still growing in grace. Alrighty, good morning, everyone. It's good to have you join me today on Still Growing in Grace. It's a great day here. Good morning, Sander from the UK. Thrilled you're chiming in. First one in. I got some great stuff today. I think you're going to like this conversation. It's I do rabbit trails really well, or hey, look, a squirrel. And today's discussion, yes, we're talking about heaven in the series, but I think you're going to like this conversation. Richard had something happen to him, and when he shared it with us, I thought, oh my goodness, I think you guys would love to hear this too. It just kind of speaks to, well, I call it heaven's mercy. So I'm without too much intro. I think I introduce it in the video, but I think you're going to really, really like this. So brace yourselves for a heartfelt, true story that just happened recently, and it's like the love and grace of Jesus shining in this dark world. Okay, there's a lot of darkness in this world, but the light shines out of darkness, and I think you're gonna love this. All right, without any more, here we go. Enjoy. Welcome to Still Growing in Grace. This is going to be an unscripted, fun conversation today. We are talking about heaven, but if we get to the topic, then great. But something else is going on. Life can catch us off guard. Insanity, extra stress, an amazing story. So, Bill, you came into this with a, because you rushed to get in. Well, so did Richard. It was like, oh, crazy day. And I had an insane day with computer tech issues. But anyway, it's all good now. And I thought, let's just take that as a reality check for all of us. And let's chat about something that happened. Because I know, Richard, you had a story. And Bill, did you see the story?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. I want Richard to share that. But before he does, do you got something from your heart that's hitting your heart today? If not, just deflect over to Richard. But I thought, hey, there's something real about the stress of day and life, and how does Jesus live in all this?
Yeah, I don't have anything specific. I mean, the only thing I would, I guess, start with is there is an element inside of this creation that is what I would refer to as chaos.
Holy chaos.
It is, and the chaos is often, it's unpredictable. It's not often fun. It's often stressful and creates anxiety, and it saps our joy a lot of the time. And not that I'm not living in joy, but I mean, it's hard to focus when you're in the middle of the
no.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm walking straight in from a Good Friday. I mean, in my particular case, I have a very successful business that I help manage and run, but it doesn't mean that there's not always curveballs and dodgeballs and stuff coming at me.
But wait a minute, I was told that when we believe in Jesus, everything's gonna be better.
Oh yeah, everything's just dandy and roses, except that's not how it happened for Jesus. So no, I think yeah, the truth is it's wonderful to know that I have a faith in a God represented by a person who became human, who did and lived with the exact same stresses and chaos, and ultimately walked it out to a place that I hopefully will never have to endure even, right? And in that, there's a lot of joy that when I do get a chance to breathe, you can see his hand of provision and grace in it all, and he is working it all together for good, even though sometimes it doesn't feel like that in the moment.
We should talk about that verse someday, because that one's a really misunderstood one. Yeah. All right, Richard, what happened? You shared a post the other day that blew my socks off, and I had to reread it. And would you invite us into your chaos? I think this is just too important.
Out of chaos comes beauty sometimes. Sometimes it doesn't. But yeah, well, I'm an attorney and I'm a criminal defense attorney, and I've got I really ought to string all these stories together, because when I see something that's just supernatural in terms of mercy or forgiveness, I feel like of all the aspects of my job, that is the one that I absolutely enjoy most, when for whatever reason, angels of mercy descend into the situation.
For all your planning that you do, you can't plan this stuff.
You cannot plan it. And if you try to plan it, it will not happen. And I have seen devils of cruelty also descend into cases. Okay. So, but, you take them, the fact that you see one, and what I'm about to share is just, I've never seen anything like it. I've practiced law over 30 years. And I've never seen this kind of thing happen. I've seen other things happen that maybe have their own flavor, but never one with this particular flavor. I was representing a 22-year-old boy. I call him a boy because, he is. Anyone 22 is still a boy and a girl to me. But anyway, he had been charged with vehicular homicide that he committed when he was 18. He was driving at an excessive rate of speed. And it was excessive. I mean, it wasn't just a little bit of speeding. It was going twice the speed limit in a 45, well, less than twice, but just less, in a 45 mile per hour zone. But he was on a road where there was a hairpin turn, and there was a wreck, and the girl, 16-year-old girl who he was friends with, he would have been 18 at the time. She's 16, and she got ejected and she got killed. Well, he got charged with vehicular homicide felony. In Georgia, there's vehicular homicide misdemeanor, and then there's vehicular homicide felony. And when you get a felony, that's serious. And it has to be predicated on, either driving under the influence or driving recklessly. And he was not under the influence, but he was driving recklessly just because of how the speed. But he went down a road he wasn't really familiar with. There was a hairpin turn, and it happened. Well, this thing goes on for 2 years, and the DA finally, it comes a time to plead because he is guilty, and he's taking it on the chin like a man. He loved this girl. He was friends with this girl, and he had gotten some contact. The girl was raised by her grandmother, and I asked the grandmother to come because I heard she was very sympathetic to the situation, and I talked to her before court. And man, I am telling you what, I won't tell you what she told me, but I will tell you what she told the court. We go into court to do the plea, and the DA is trying to get a year in prison for him. And she believes that's being merciful, given the facts. And there were mitigating factors. I had hired an expert to say that, and he was a Georgia State patrolman who was very well regarded. And he retired. Now he does accident reconstruction. He said, we've been warning, the DOT about this area and the county about this area for years because it's dangerous. There needs to be a guardrail there. So anyway, he did his all work and came back and said, had there been a guardrail there, it would have been more likely that the girl would have survived. But that doesn't make my client not guilty. It just maybe brings a little bit of mitigation into it. And there were some other mitigating factors too. The truck he was driving didn't have airbags. Airbags might have saved her, might have kept her from being ejected. So there were some things that weren't out of his control that might have made a difference, but the speed was in his control. And so he pled guilty to that. Well, I called the grandmother based on what she told me before earlier in the day. And she gets up there and she says, Your Honor, and I'm paraphrasing because I could tell this story a dozen times and think of different things that she said because she went on for about 8 or 9 minutes. That's a lot of talking. And but anyway, she goes up there and she says, Your Honor, I want you to know some things. I want to tell you that my Molly would not want her friend to go to jail. She loved him. He was a special friend to her. He took care of her. He guarded her. He protected her. One time when she was stranded, he went and got her. She went down to Six Flags thinking she had a free ticket, and the people didn't have a free ticket, so she was there penniless. And my client took care of her and paid for her ticket and did all this. And they weren't dating; they were just friends, nothing more than friends, but special friends. And he protected her and guarded her from things. But he stumbled this night, and they were going to meet some people at the racetrack over there in this particular county. And he says I was speeding, and we were just having fun and being reckless. I mean, he admitted it. But anyway, so she gets up there and she says, Your Honor, I want you to know that what will honor my girl's memory will be to not send him to jail. I don't want him to go to jail, and I'm insisting that he not go to jail. Okay, now this is a woman that's telling this to a judge, and you don't talk to judges that way. But she's there on her walker, and she kind of moves up there with a walker.
This is Georgia, right?
Yeah, just precious lady. And she gets into how sweet her girl was, and how she wouldn't want this, and I want her memory honored, not dishonored. I'm telling you, she took the concept of forgiveness and went to war with it. I sometimes think of the petty things we won't forgive somebody for, and then when somebody like this comes along, it not only is heaven, heaven demonstrated on the earth, but I mean it like makes our unforgiveness look pathetic. So the judge is just sitting there staring at her. And then when she starts kind of insisting with the judge, I kind of look at the judge and I'm saying, oh no, we're overplaying our hand, and I look up at the judge and the judge is crying. All right. The judge melts under this woman's authority and under her goodwill and under her forgiveness. And she basically just went on and on with it about how my client had been a good friend to her and about how this was a horrible accident that happened on a horrible road. And, he suffered enough, and he's had he has a little boy now himself, 15-month-old boy. And he needs to be able to, and his wife doesn't have any family. And if he goes to jail, there won't be anyone to take care of them. Nothing could dishonor my girl's memory more than this. And I mean, I am telling you.
Can I highlight a comment you made when you wrote this out online? Because you posted this.
Sure.
You were sitting back, and I forget what it was you said, something about what do I do now? How is God going to work? And you said something about, do you remember?
Well, yeah, it was basically that I was about to say something because she was being too, in my lawyerly thinking, I thought she may have been overplaying the hand, and I was going to say something. But then when I saw the judge crying, I said, Richard, shut up and let this thing unfold. And that's what happened. And it did unfold. And so she goes and she says all this. And then the judge is, like I'm saying, the judge is crying up there, and other people in the courtroom are crying. And we're the last ones to go. There's not a whole lot of people in the courtroom. So then I called the brother up, and the brother of the deceased 16-year-old. And he comes up there and he says, I agree with everything my grandmom said. I know my sister well enough to know that she would want him to be free and forgiven about all this. And I'm asking the court to do that. To forgive her and to set him free. And so then I had a letter that was from the landlord, my guy's landlord. I told him, get some letters from your landlord or, someone just to say you're a stable guy and all this. Well, it ends up that her landlord is a retired city clerk that knew the judge and was very good friends with the judge. And the judge gets up and says, and she didn't even know that this was the judge that was going to hear it. Because it said to whom it may concern. It wasn't a judge, so they didn't even know. So the judge she said, let me tell you what, I had the utmost respect for her. She sat right next to me in this courtroom for 15 years, and I respect her opinion. And for her to say the things she said about you are incredible. So with those are the three things. And my guy took it like a man. And then he got up and he said, look, I have nightmares about this every day. And I realize now, with my own child, that I should have been more careful with her child, and more responsible. And I mean,
that's powerful.
He just embraced it. And so the judge then just started speaking and started saying, and was weeping. I mean, she was breaking up. She could hardly talk. And she said, I've never seen anything like this in my courtroom. I've never seen anything like this. And she said, when this thing started, it was not headed towards mercy, I assure you. based on when I read the indictment and about what happened. But I sit here and watch these people come in and defend you, love you, and honor the memory, of the deceased like this. How can I not, respond to this? And during all this, when she's talking, the grandmother, who's gone back to sit down in her chair, stands up and says, "Your Honor, this boy is now my grandson." And I just, oh my God. So then we all, we're all bawling there. And then the long and short of it is the judge gives him straight probation and and then reduces the amount of time the DA wanted him to do on probation, and then says in 3 years, if you've got a clean record, we can come back and adjust all this. I mean, so it's just, and he got first offender treatment, which means it won't be on his record. Just an incredible amount of mercy on the thing. And it just, I don't know, I was just overwhelmed at the power of forgiveness. I mean, this was like, you hear Jesus talk about these persistent widows that come to him and insist on things, and the chutzpah, these women that come up to him with chutzpah and won't leave, the woman that pushes through the crowd and grabs the hem of his thing, just how much he loves chutzpah. And this woman was like the chutzpah queen, and she gets in there and she spoke with the authority of God and just dominated that courtroom. And the judge, to her incredible credit, yielded to it. And I'm telling you, it was holy ground. And I was honored to be a part of it. And again, it just showed me how pathetic the things that we refuse to forgive others for, how an act like this just brings our unforgiveness into just such a shame. And I'm not talking about shame. I'm not trying to shame anybody. I'm just saying it makes it look pitiful. The concept of unforgiveness look pitiful. This is so divine. We talk about heaven. And I think the most heavenly thing I continue to ever see is this pure, unadulterated forgiveness.
You got a glimpse into heaven.
Yes, it's such a powerful, and we all need forgiveness. And even though I understand we're fractured, and Chesterton said it this way: we're all seasick and we're all in the same boat. That's the best way I've heard it described. And I know that. And I'm not trying to condemn anybody, but we have angst. Every one of us, we have that existential angst where we feel something's not right, or we feel inadequate, or we just feel our mistakes weigh us down and continue to taunt us and haunt us. And, we need to know in no uncertain terms that our Abba God forgives us and has nothing but forgiveness towards us. And that we're called, and Jesus, one of the most amazing things Jesus said to the disciples, to me, was that whosoever sins you forgive are forgiven. But if you don't forgive them, they stand unforgiven. And he's not talking about him forgiving him. He's just talking about us being agents. Talking about us being agents. We're called to be agents of forgiveness. We want to walk in the supernatural giftings. The best gifting we have is to tell people they're forgiven by a God who loves them. Yep. And holds nothing against them. And that's when you see the real thing like this. And I wasn't expecting this, and
clearly,
I mean, I wasn't expecting it, and it was just such a divine moment where, for every one of these moments, I can give you, many other moments when nothing like this happened. But it does make me wonder what elements make it conducive. A lot of
you
elements.
Mean that you can control the repeat of it?
Yeah, well, I just want to see more of it on any level.
But you know what I mean? That's what Christians do. They see something amazing.
You're right.
How did you do it? Give me the recipe so I can follow. Tell me what to do so I can repeat that.
Right. I think the only thing we can do is to try to keep ourselves tender and to just be observant, to just be observant and not jump the gun. If I had cut her off, and chastised her, for the way she was speaking to the judge, I would have been the villain. I would have been the one that should go to jail, So just being sensitive in the moment, and then when it does happen, just give him, give the Lord the credit for it and share it with people and give people hope, because the legal, there's so much unforgiveness in the court, and there's so much vengeance in the court, and there's so much vindictiveness in the court, and so much pettiness in the court, and so much manipulation and hardness. When you see something like this, it's like it restores humanity into the court. We can just kind of become robotic drones, guilty, not guilty, 5 years in jail, this, that, and the other. And I understand those things are Caesar's law and they have to be, they have to be kept. But to see something organic like this, and to see the angels, our better angels, come in and not just suggest forgiveness, but demand it. Man, I got to tell you, I love that.
She sassed the judge.
I know.
Wow.
That's amazing.
Now, you did say there was weeping, lots of weeping, right?
Yes.
That tells you the tenderness of the heart of everyone receiving what they're seeing.
Yes. And the probation officer came up to me afterwards and came up and said, how did you do that? And I said, I didn't do it. If you'll note, I wasn't the one talking.
Wow. Bill, how'd you react when you read that and heard this?
No, I mean, how else can you react but to have just total, I don't have a better word than Richard used, holy ground. Right. And kind of tie it back on the topic, it is heavenly. That is bringing heaven to earth, right? Which is really, I think, the mystery of heaven. Heaven isn't somewhere we go. It's something that is invading where we're at right now. And I think sometimes we miss that. I mean, even in Revelation, the bride comes down here. We don't go up to heaven. Heaven comes down here. And, there's something about this idea of a renewed earth and a resurrected humanity and the marriage of heaven to what we consider reality, right? And that reality is not going away. It's just going to be seen through a new paradigm. And at least that's how I see it. And so heaven is not distant. Heaven is coming, has come, is coming, and will continue to come.
And is here.
And when we start seeing it from that dynamic, these moments that, just like Richard had, we're participating in that active engagement, right? That active consummation of heaven and earth right now.
I caught the union of humanity with Christ in the story. It's like everyone is included and there is no separation. So when you go to a courtroom, you're seeing payback demands, right? And this is the first time a Hebrew concept of putback is displayed. And you've shared once in a while a story of profoundness like that, but this one was the first one that you've told that just happened, right? Since I've known you. But the restoration of all things, the reconciliation being declared, we just saw it in action. It was real humbling. I love the story.
Well,
thank you.
Well, and it makes me wonder how our unforgiveness, humanity's unforgiveness, has corrupted creation. I don't pretend to know how these waves work, but with all the wars and all the hatred and all the unforgiveness that we there, how that infects and affects our environment is really unknown. But a lot of times we have an unforgiving nature. We have an unforgiving disasters. We have unforgiveness. It would just be interesting, wouldn't it, if this whole thing was about just not only forgiving creation, and by forgiving it, we heal it. By forgiving one another, we heal each other. And the rabbis, had this Jewish concept of tikkun ha'olam, which is the repair of the world. And another way to look at that is it's the forgiveness of the world. We go as agents of forgiveness, forgiving each other. And forgiving creation, forgiving destruction, forgiving oppression, forgiving those things. And that's how we fight it, by forgiving it rather than by resisting it.
That's right. Yeah, no, I that just reminds me when you say that, my head and my heart go back to really the second story of humanity in the Bible, which is Cain and Abel. And that's, at least for me, where it goes back, and how, like, the story of humanity, its first born generation, right? These two brothers. To me, we've made the story always about the evil brother Cain, right? That's kind of the crux. And look, he goes off and he's the bad guy and yada yada yada. And so humanity's been tainted because by Cain. But in reality, I think that the hidden twist of the story is the blood of Abel, who died, who screamed for vengeance. Abel's unwillingness to forgive, even from the grave, is that maybe not when hell itself was created?
Wow.
You said something earlier about forgiveness. What was the quote you said? I think it was from Jesus telling the story, or it was right after the Lord's Prayer. If you don't forgive, you won't be forgiven. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah. Well, and also when he breathed the Holy Spirit on him, and that some people think that's John's view of Pentecost. That's different than the other views of Pentecost. But he says, "Receive you the Holy Spirit. Whosoever sins you forgive are forgiven, and whosoever sins you are unforgiven are unforgiven." But you combine that with the other comments that you were referring to there, and the concept is that if we hold people in unforgiveness, we're judged by the same standard of unforgiveness, and it's not God judging us; it's us judging ourselves. And it blocks. These are all forgiveness blockers. Unforgiveness are things that block us having mercy.
The same thing can be said about the unforgivable or unpardonable sin of the Holy Spirit. I see the same thing happening there. The unpardonable sin is believing that Holy Spirit's incapable of being as forgiving as Christ. Yes. And if you believe that Holy Spirit has any judgment, any condemnation, then we hold the unforgiveness, not her, right? Not Christ, us. We're the ones latched on to unforgiveness, not the divine.
Right.
So what I wanted to highlight, and I'm still looking at this and the whole Aramaic interpretation of the Lord's Prayer. I'm still trying to find the legitimacy of it, but the essence of what I see in that prayer screams truth to me. So here's an example of how the Aramaic language may interpret the Lord's Prayer, part of the if you don't forgive or forgive one another, and if you don't forgive, you won't be forgiven. The idea is if you don't unfetter the chains on others, God's not going to do it for you. Very different than you're not going to get forgiveness if you don't forgive. It's like in the Lord's Prayer, forgive us our trespasses as we unloose the chains that bind us or bound on others, they'll be done to us. Like that concept. Does that make any sense? Have you heard that before?
No, I love it.
Oh my goodness. Okay. I'm scrambling in the background here trying to find it. Here it is. I found it. Here's how it's, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but it says here, detach the fetters of faults that bind us, like we let go the guilt of others. Let us not be lost in superficial things, but let us be freed from that which keeps us off from our true purpose. And then on and on. I'll share it with you later, but this is a way to understand that prayer. And then, but it's, to me, the best part was the ending. So people always jump on, hey, if you don't forgive, God's not going to forgive you. But if we continue that same theme and tone, we realize it's saying, if you don't unfetter the chains of those you're having a hard time with, God's not doing it for you. So there isn't the rage and condemnation. This is the, hey, own your stuff. It's for your benefit. Look at the fruit that happens when you do that. And you just saw it.
Yeah. And I think part of that too is that if you don't forgive, it's not that Christ hasn't already forgiven you 2,000 years ago. He's not a liar. He forgave you 2,000 years ago. What it is you can't receive that forgiveness. Your unforgiveness keeps you from receiving God's forgiveness. It's not God's willingness. He's not going to coerce you. Like you said, he's not going to coerce you into receiving his forgiveness. But, and it's like the guy who wouldn't forgive in the parable, the unforgiving servant. He got his sins forgiven, but then he wouldn't forgive somebody else. So then he gets put back in prison. But we have to understand that that's not God putting him back in prison. That's his own hypocrisy putting him back in prison. So and I got to tell you, when I walked out of that courtroom yesterday, I felt like a feather. I was so light. I felt like all sorts of oppressions and yuck had lifted off of me that had just built up over multiple court appearances and muddy traction and things like that. But I tell you, I couldn't even talk. I had to text somebody, I can't talk right now. I'm undone. I'll call you back at a few. I can't talk right now because it was so overwhelming. And you know what? you know what? I think every one of us wants to be overwhelmed by the love of God. And there's not a better example than forgiveness, of using forgiveness as a weapon. I guess I've never seen it used the way she did it yesterday. She went in as bold as a lion and she went to war with forgiveness. And I got to tell you, it's really, impacted me and my whole view of it.
I love it. Love wins.
Yeah.
It's really the story of Saul turning to Paul, isn't it?
Let's wrap this
absolutely.
up because we're gonna we're at the end of our time already. But I'm glad this was focused on the story of grace you just shared. It just was so brilliant. We could continue on and talk about heaven, and it's good, but we got to stop and smell the roses when they pop up, and this one popped up.
Yeah, amen.
Well, I think our heaven discussion, if we continue it right in thereafter, is going to roll right into this.
Good.
They're complementary. They really are.
Good. Let's do it. All right, folks. Thanks for watching, and please join us next time. This was fun. Oh man, you feel undone? I love it. I love that last thought that Richard had when he said, I felt like all the dirt of all the other court cases and all the dirt of the day is like being pulled off. Like I don't know, very powerful. I hope you enjoyed that. That was so cool. I thought, okay, let's rabbit trail here on this series, because I'd rather have authentic life being shared instead of having to stick to a script or topic, whatever. I want this program to be encouraging to everyone who is still growing in grace. And maybe today this was just for you. Maybe you needed to hear a story of forgiveness that you couldn't package. And maybe it'll inspire you or give you hope to forgive someone, or it'll inspire you to not be so judgmental. Maybe it'll inspire you to quit looking at the differences of opinions of your friends, your fellow believers. We got lots of stuff going on right now. We got the COVID stuff going on, and we have multiple opinions. We got politics going on. But you know what? Let's not let those divide us. Let's let a story like this that gives light in the darkness inspire us and spur us on to good deeds. That's it for today. You guys have a really great day. We're going to come back to part 4, talking about heaven next week. I think you'll enjoy it. It was really good. Again, I love watching and listening with you as we're going through, because I'm hearing things again that I didn't quite hear the same way when I'm live having the conversation. So this is a lot of fun. I hope you're enjoying it. I don't hear from a lot of you. Some of you, yes. But if you're enjoying this, tell others about it, and comment. You know, like, it's hard to know what the feedback is. And here in Canada, at least, folks, they go, "That's nice." And they really love it, but they don't say anything. So they're so quiet and conservative about it, and it's hard. But that's okay. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed it. I hope we'll see you next time. You guys have a really, really great day. We'll catch you then. Join me next time on Still Growing in Grace for more good news. Enjoy previous episodes by downloading our podcast at growingingrace.ca. You can also visit hopefellowshipycc.com to find our service times and location. If this show has been an encouragement to you, please consider making a donation today at growingingrace.ca and help us keep spreading this good news. Thank you again for tuning in to Still Growing in Grace.